get started? Have a seat. I hope it's comfortable for you.
My granddaughter.
Oh, nice.
Hey, let me see. Let me see
That was
that.
distracting. That was distracting.
Public speaking. She's gorgeous. Granddaughter. That's awesome. Okay, folks, let's get started.
Thank you.
She's adorable.
Let's get started. Would you mind taking a seat so we can get going? Welcome to the September meeting, and thank you for understanding the change of venue. I can't think of a better night to still be at the lake. Despite the drawdown, it's still a gorgeous lake to look at. We've got some dry stuff up on the east end, but we'll work with that, and hopefully this railroad will be done soon. So without any further delay, let's take a look. As everybody's seen the August 19th board meeting minutes, and are there any additions or deletions or corrections? There being...
The only addition I would have is, didn't a lawyer speak on behalf of and that would be the only addition I would put. I didn't see it in there.
That was in public comment. His
Okay.
name was Jason. Do you have his name,
Okay.
Adam? He spoke on behalf of the lady up in...
Just ask if we
Mike's-
had, that we put that,
Okay.
add that so that we keep that on
Okay.
our list of things to do.
Make that addition. Thank you. Any other adjustments? If not, I would entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the August 19th board meeting minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, the treasurer's report. Mike, thanks for fighting traffic to get here from work.
You're welcome. Okay, let's see, I'm trying to figure this out here as we go along. Sorry about that, folks. My daughter just had my very first grandchild. Lady Grace, thank you very much. This was Monday.
Oh,
This was
wow.
Monday, so
Great.
my world is just,
That's awesome.
yeah, I'll pass them around.
That's
Absolutely.
wonderful. Good for you.
This, I knew this would be a good distraction right there. Here's a picture.
She's perfect.
Pass it around. I'm gonna get on track here. Sorry, folks. Okay, I was just gonna give you a list of our income. Adam, do you have that handy? I'm trying to look here. Because it says January to August.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, January to August.
21,105 for the month for the net. That can't
Yeah.
be right. Is that right?
Yeah, we start dropping around this time of year.
Okay.
Just because park use starts coming down, most of the annual passes are sold. Kind of tapers off as we head into the
So
fall.
really, that should just be August income, right? August income for that period. So nevertheless, we had $21,000 in income last month, and the expenses, bear with me, please. Probably on the last page. You have it? You know,
You want me to come back around? Shall we do the manager's report and circle back?
Go
to you?
right ahead.
Would that be
Yes,
good?
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
we'll give you
for
time
that.
to, I know you just got here.
Thank you.
We'll do that. Adam, why don't you go ahead with your report, and then we'll do the treasurer's report. We'll just switch the two.
6/14/24.
We'll go ahead and start off. First on the manager's report, we have potential purchase of our KCX80 excavator, the mini excavator that we have been using for our dredging operation on the small barge. I have gone ahead, our due diligence with the purchase between $50,000 and $100,000. We do have to get quotes from a few different companies, just to have some comparison. So I pulled out 3 quotes from different companies, 2 out of Ohio and 1 out of Minnesota. That's for the same model, 2016 CX80. Both those quotes are right around $80,000, a couple $100 less than $80,000. But the big main difference I want to point out is while we're still in the same ballpark, those do not have our biodegradable oil, which is about $4,000 to $5,000 just in oil cost alone. They do not have hydraulic couplers, and actually the aftermarket coupler is what allows us to turn the buckets around. And we do actually own our bucket with this coupler. So just those three things on their own will actually make up that difference in the purchase. Plus, this one's sitting here on site, not needing any inspection, traveling, drop off, or anything like that. There's currently about 230 hours on that machine. I believe there's under 40 hours we got to drop off. That was essentially a brand new machine, and almost all of the 200 hours are from use on the lake. Has been tied down in the barge. Actually, a company came up and gave us the couplings and the fittings that we actually needed to tie it down in the barge. We know that it works. We do have in the budget, we budgeted $90,000 for the purchase of an excavator this year. So this comes in below that $90,000. And while we did initially in our budget, we expected to get that $90,000 out of the loan, we're actually doing very good this year financially. I don't have my financials right in front of me, but we're 20 some odd thousand in the black currently. We're still waiting on our second set of taxes that will be coming in, so we have another $100,000 coming in from that. So the way that we're sitting, we were not eligible to start work on Little Africa due to being a wetland. We had $40,000 budgeted for the start of that to get that up and running. Staff costs come down in the short dredging season, so I'm very confident we'll actually be able to purchase this excavator with our cash on hand, not even taking out a loan, and still very likely in the year in the black, which would be great not having that loan that we're going to be repaying for a few years to come. The barge is actually working really good with it, and as long as we have that barge, it makes more sense to have our piece of equipment on hand rather than spending the nearly $20,000 for an entire season to run it. So I would like to go ahead and motion or request a motion that we purchase this excavator, the KCX80 from Wilson Equipment for the cost of $87,870. And that actually does include our rental fees for the year, which are a little over $14,000. That actually came off the top dollar, so it was over a $100,000 purchase, and they're actually applying that to the purchase, which was really good. While there were some options to lease it out over the years, I think since we have the money on hand and we're doing very well, I think it makes more sense just to purchase it and then and have it here. So I'll open that up for discussion.
Adam, you also think that that machine might be of value in the park on land at times for work that you would do there in addition to the dredging?
I do, yeah. The machine the size would be great to use around the park. We have a lot of stuff coming up, replacing bollards, tearing down old equipment. I've actually used it for leveling stone and ditch work here in the park already, so it'd be something nice to have in the wintertime. We can store that here and actually use it for work around the park too, rather than bringing in a 70,000-pound excavator, just tearing up our ground everywhere that we go. So I think it will be provided pretty useful for both the maintenance of the park and our dredging operation.
I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about the biodegradable oil. That sounds like a pretty expensive oil change. $5,000. I mean, what is it and what's the advantage?
The biodegradable is in the machine right now. So if we were to send it back and not purchase it, I think there's a $2,000, a little over $2,000 fee to actually change the oil back. What the benefit of the biodegradable oil is it's a naturally based oil, so if it spills out into the water supply, rather than causing the fish kill, it'll actually break down in the water. Because if we had, say, some of our land-based, the hydraulic fluid, if it gets in, it's very caustic to the fish in the biota there. So the biodegradable fluid actually will not kill off the biota, it'll break down naturally in the system. So really it's kind of just a buffer or a safety net for us, because we have had hoses break on machines out on the lake, and when they're under pressure, you can lose a lot of oil really quick. So having that biodegradable oil is just a kind of a fail-safe for us, or a safety net, to where if water does enter in, we're not going to be dealing with a fish kill. And then
So it's only in the hydraulics, it's not in the engine?
that's correct, yeah, it's in the hydraulic systems.
Okay. Why is it so expensive? I mean, this is way out there.
You may be able to answer this more than I could.
It's just, anything that says biodegradable, it's just one of those things that it just makes it more expensive. It's, a different additive, it's a different chemical makeup, it's not as highly produced as, like a normal hydraulic fluid we would put in our machines. So it's just kind of one of those things that because it's biodegradable, so it makes it cleaner, makes it, break down easier, it's healthier. Anything that's healthier is more expensive, and it's not as mass produced. produced is, you know, what we normally.
So does it have to be changed out like every year or something?
No, the hydraulic fluid, it's not something that's regularly changed out and drained. It's more of like, it may be I don't even know if it's on the 500-hour service, it may be on the 1,000-hour service that you would have to drain the whole system and redo that. The engine oil is usually every 500 hours, but the hydraulic is, you know, it's recirculated. It's, you know, you don't normally have to change that as often unless you have a spill and then you have to replenish it. You know, if a line breaks or something like that, you may have to get some, have some on. But we would take care of that.
Kind of falls in the category of it is what it is. You know, I don't, it's just, or like, if it's organic, it's more.
When you say take care of it, is that like covered under warranty or something?
It's not covered under warranty, but I would work with that. I mean, you know, we would help out with that. You know, we're not gonna say, well, it's $2,000. You know, we appreciate the opportunity to help you all out. You know, you've rented equipment from us, so it's all about building a relationship and finding the best way to help both parties out. You know, we can't lose money, but we don't want to take all your all's money. Yeah, we want to help out so both sides find something that's fair. And, you know, I've worked at Adam a lot here in the past year. We've always found a way to make things work. So when I say help out, you know, we're always going to try to find ways to say, hey, you know, Quincy, help me out on this one and that type of thing. We'll find a way to make it work.
And you brought donuts last time, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about those donuts.
And so we don't have to take the lowest bid, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We don't have to take the lowest bid. And this being how fitted it is and customized to us with the couplers, with the buckets, all the fitting that's been done to it. Any of these other machines would easily be over this cost by the time we retrofitted them for all that.
Okay.
Plus, I mean, last time when we've actually had stuff shipped up here, you're usually spending about $1,000 one way to ship costs. So having it on site here, not needing the delivery, and it being a brand new machine, I mean, we know it works well. We've tested it out. We're really confident with it. The stats, really comfortable with it.
Okay.
All right, any other questions from the board? Or Mike, I kind of think we might be ready to make a motion on this. Would you care to make the excavator motion? I know you feel strongly about it.
Oh, I very strongly about it. I've had many conversations with Adam about it, and yes, I would make the motion that we purchase the current excavator that we're renting from Wilson for the purchasing contract.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second?
Is there any discussion? Adam, I would ask quickly, has that contract been reviewed by?
This contract actually was written by Angela. We used a generic contract that Angela has written
just
for
double
the
check.
purchases, and we just modified for the company. in
Okay.
particular piece of equipment.
Thank you. All right, it's been moved and seconded that we go ahead with the purchase agreement as written. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for your hard work on that, and thank you.
And I do actually have contracts here that were signed by their president.
Okay.
So I would like to go ahead and maybe have you sign them here so we can send them home with one of these.
And that means you don't have to stay, Quincy, if you don't want.
Or you'd have time to go get
I think
donuts.
it's signed.
Oh, wait a minute, never mind.
I'll be back again. I'll bring some Jeff back here again.
Adam, if you want to.
Thank you, Quincy. It's been great working with Wilson. I mean, every time you call, I have somebody up there, and it's great to find companies. We tried working with some of the bigger companies for rentals, and they just don't really care about kind of a single-use patron. They're kind of more worried about the highways going on and the major equipment rentals, so it's been good. All right, next up on the manager's report, we have Dave Seastrom from the Indiana Forest Alliance. Here to talk about some of the happenings in our watershed as far as tree removal and deforestation and logging. And Dave, I'd like to welcome you to the floor.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to come. I really appreciate it. And just for the record, my wife and I are freeholders on the lake, which is part of my interest, but also we had some wind problems earlier, so one at a time photo illustration. This is a simple map of the watershed of Lake Leonard. Okay? And all of these green properties in here, these are DNR properties, that are forested. There's also quite a bit of land that's under certified forest. In fact, some of you may even have some of that certified forest, which the DNR manages but does not own. It's a private ownership partner with the DNR. So essentially what's going on is about 12 years ago, the DNR had their funding cut. And to make up for the loss of their general fund, they've increased logging by 400%. With that increase is also a change in the methodology that they're using. So it used to be guys that would show up with pickup trucks with chainsaws, and they'd have skidders with them, and they'd cut the trees down and skid them out along the trails and respect the forest floor. Pretty much a few months after a cut, it would be hard. You'd have to go look for the stubs, right? Because the forest floor was intact, the majority of the trees were still there. What we have now is they've mechanized it. So they have these giant machines they call feller bunchers. Feller bunchers almost, where I'm standing to that fireplace, and wouldn't fit in this room, okay? Giant wheels that churn up the forest floor just in the act of cutting the trees down. You might as well plow. It's got a giant articulated arm. It rolls up to the tree, grabs the tree, blade shoots out underneath, and shoves the tree over. Takes about as long as my description of it. So with this 400% increase, they're also bulldozing the forest floor when they're done, and they're building 30-foot wide gravel roads. And in the wake is a tremendous amount of erosion that's taking place. There are 3 soil scientists who work for the DNR, whose job it is to go and look at every single logging event in all 13 of our state forests. This is a reflection of the lack of funding they had. In fact, I met the one gal who's in charge of all of it, and she said they can't hardly keep up with it. But their job is to go back and look at a logging site after it's been completed and make sure that what they call best management practices have been followed. All right, that means that they build water dams and diversions and things to prevent erosion from taking place. But it can take up to 18 months after a logging event before these water dams and what all are actually in place. And during that time, on steep terrain like we have in our watershed, it's bleeding topsoil that's running straight into Lake Lemon. And I strongly feel that this needs to be considered as we're reviewing plans for dredging, that perhaps along with all the remediation that's going to take place, and much needed, is the notion that we could prevent quite a bit of this erosion by asking the governor to create a moratorium on the logging of the watershed of Lake Lemon. We are a reserved water source for the city of Bloomington, which is 120,000 people depending on this water. Lake Monroe has identical issues. But I have a couple of photos to illustrate my point. And perhaps one of the most graphic is this one. This was formerly a little stream that ran through the forest. And as you can see, this is highly eroded down in the bedrock. The distance between this log and that bottom of that stream is 6 feet, to give you a little perspective on it. I'll walk over here so these folks can see it too. But
Then come back
So
past
come
us.
to us. Dave, can you tell us where that is?
yes, yes, and I looking back to this watershed now.
You could do your best fan away here.
I mean, I have a PowerPoint presentation, which unfortunately didn't work with our current environment, so we get planned. The other thing is the state has just announced the sale of timber from 3 properties in what was formerly protected backcountry. That area is right in here. And that sale has not gone through yet.
How many acres?
I think it's 300 acres. The photo that I showed you actually came from over here.
Okay.
And let me verify that. Okay, it's actually right in here. And it goes right into Bean Blossom Creek. I have another map that actually shows all the little streams and tributaries. I'm just going to show it to you because, I mean, unless you study this, you can't really get all this information. But what it does show you is, look at all the little streams. I mean, there's a zillion of them, right? Every little valley, every ravine has one, right? Right now, they're all intact. And when they're intact, they don't bleed topsoil. No amount of remediation following the logging event prevents erosion. I was in a conversation this morning with Dr. Ray Snap, who did the extensive Bean Blossom watershed study 10 years ago. She's considered the expert in this area and this particular topic. And what she said to me this morning is absolutely true. The most ideal land cover you could have to prevent erosion on a steep hillside is intact forest. It's simply that simple. And we're talking about the state gaining a few $100,000. But we're talking about spending $4.5 million on one piece of equipment to possibly dredge the lake. So again, I would say that as an entity, the Conservancy has a more powerful voice than we do as individuals. I mean, a lot of us write letters to the governor all the time. He's probably sick of getting my letters, but you know, he can stop this with the stroke of a pen. And he has executive power to do that. It was executive power that created this increase in logging in the first place, and he can do away with it if he chooses. And it's my feeling, it's my opinion, that as an entity, if the Lake Lemon Conservancy were to draft a letter to the governor explaining our siltation issues and the amount of money that we're about to spend, mention the fact that, you know, here we have a situation where a secondary water source to the city of Bloomington is being jeopardized by this logging, that would have far more impact than if all of us in this room wrote a letter, simply because of the status of the LLC. So that would be my initial proposal. I'm more than willing. Ray Snap, Dr. Snap said she is willing to address you guys, come in here and talk about all of this. I mean, she's a PhD from Purdue. So the DNR says, well, yeah, it's all Bloomington or whatever. No. We have scientists from a lot of different universities, including Purdue, who work with us. You know, the Indiana Forest Alliance, which I'm a member of, is a science-based conservation organization. That's how we get our information. That's how we make the choices. Our focus now is to try to establish a situation where the state will actually set aside 10% of the forest for preservation. It's in their guidelines, and so far they refuse to do it. So again, holding their feet to the fire, making them actually live up to their best management practices, which would prevent a lot of this erosion in the first place. But more importantly, to preserve the forest. You know, there's very little we can do about public land. You know, we've got a huge watershed here, right? Very little we can do about that. But here are public lands that are being managed from decisions being made in Indianapolis. And this is a real opportunity to address this issue and prevent all of these hundreds of acres from contributing to a problem that we already have.
Dave, can you tell us the timetable? I mean, how fast is this occurring? What kind of time frame do we have to work with?
We think that within the next 15 years, every single state forest in Indiana will be logged in this manner.
In the next 15 years?
15 to 20 years maximum.
Okay, and has it started? Is it getting ready to start?
Oh, no, it's been in practice. It's, like I say, the plan changed 12 years ago.
Okay.
But it took a period of time to ramp up. And now we're seeing it in full swing.
Okay.
There's been articles about Yellowwood.
Yes.
And what, and in both the Indy Star and our paper about.
Well, and in the
Nashville.
Nashville paper.
Did you see the Sunday article a couple of weeks ago? There was a guy in a pair of suspenders walking with a
Yeah.
back.
Yes, we saw you.
Camera, that would be me. So, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
We're really working with the press. We're trying to get this information out. And again, this is not a criticism of the Department of Natural Resources. This is the criticism of the Department of Forestry's choice in managing our forests.
We are not a state that cares about environmental issues.
Sadly, that's true. But the people care. And I think this is what we're trying to establish with the governor's office. In fact, a group of us were up in the governor's office 2 weeks ago. We met with Rebecca Hollander, who is Governor Holcomb's #1. She's the chief of staff, if you will. I don't think that's her official title, but she's come up through the ranks with Governor Holcomb. And she's a 37-year-old woman who is going to be our governor someday. I'm just here to say she's really, really sharp. And nothing goes through the governor, or to the governor, until it goes through her. So, do any of you guys have questions?
I do.
Yes.
If we were, did I jump ahead of anybody? If we were to come up with a decision tree on how we were going to write a letter to the governor, obviously the governor is in charge of Indiana DNR, but does the Department of the Forestry, that's federal, isn't it?
No. This is
So
a state
that's-
agency.
So the Department of Forestry,
Under the management of the Department of Natural Resources.
under the DNR?
Yes.
Okay. So we would need to have this lady, this PhD lady come and tell us probably, and then we would also need the engineering study on what they think, how much sediment is coming in.
Yeah.
We need some data, we need some facts.
Sure.
Okay.
And like I say, Dr. Snap did the baseline study that was completed 10 years ago for the Bee Blossom watershed.
Okay.
Which is in the Lake Lemon watershed.
It's already,
Right.
yes,
We
it's
know.
already.
We have it online. Okay, so, very good.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things that she mentioned about that, and not the least of which is, again, the most ideal ground cover that you can have to prevent erosion on steep hillsides is an intact forest. And no amount of remediation stops erosion following a logging event. And I actually have dozens and dozens of photographs to prove this, and unfortunately my PowerPoint, I could hold my thumb drive up, but no.
So, Dave, I have a question.
Sure.
I think reality would say we might get them to stop and rethink what they're doing, but I don't think we're going to get them to stop doing it. And
Within the
So-
watershed here or in general?
in general.
Well, I agree. I agree.
So-
This is, but
So I
think
guess my concern is we ask for a moratorium to what end?
to protect our watershed.
Right, to protect a
Very
watershed, but
specific
given
request.
that the laws in this state, and back to Sue's comment, you know, that we're not the most environmentally friendly state in the union,
We are one of the worst.
you know, how do we get to a place where we can work with them? Because I think they're gonna continue to cut trees, but could they do it in a more responsible
Well, that's what
manner?
he's
Could they,
saying. No,
you know-
instead of coming in with the big machines that are just picking them up and moving them.
Yeah, the feller buncher, just the elimination of the feller buncher in the process would be a huge improvement.
Okay,
So there's a lot of room for negotiations with the governor's office on this.
Okay.
But again, I think we have a powerful opportunity. You know, all we're asking is please respect our watershed. You know, there are 13 state forests. We're talking about 600,000+ acres in the state that are managed this way, right? Now, state parks and nature preserves and things like this are all managed differently. You know, so don't lump them together in your mind. The state park is totally protected. So Brown County State Park, they're not logging like this. These are state forests. Which a lot of us feel that we should preserve wildlands in Indiana. These are the only wildlands we have. It's a remnant of what the whole state used to be. So if you want to have a window into what was Indiana like before settlement, drive up Low Gap Road, take that trail, backcountry, get in there and look at it. Those trees, we've got 150-year-old trees in there. We have a forest floor that's completely intact. All of the plants, all of the spring ephemerals, the lady slippers, all of these things are there now. Once these areas are being logged, what's left is barren land that bleeds topsoil for months and months, followed by the invasive species that they have introduced. With the logging equipment itself, that arrives in a new track covered in mud from the previous track. And with that comes the autumn olive, the stilt grass, and we can document it. We have absolute proof that this is taking place.
If we're to write a letter, as a government agency, we can't lobby other government agencies. But if we were to write a letter, are there specific practices that they're not adhering to or not
Yeah,
using
that was
that
good.
we could mention in our letter to try to
You
get
could
them to...
say something like, this is one area that needs a rigid enforcement of your best management practices. I'm not sure that that would really do much to prevent the erosion though. Because like I say, even if they follow their guidelines, they have up to months and months following a logging event to actually go in and do these things. And all the while, here's these steep hillsides. I mean, that one picture, this deep rough used to be a little stream. This was taken before the 4-inch rain event took place in July. I mean, today, you can drive a semi in there. So I think that it's a very small and reasonable request to ask that these few properties be eliminated from the possibility of logging. I don't know if that's lobbying the government. It's not like,
No, it's right. It's absolutely right.
We're not
We can do that.
asking for money.
So now the best management practices, those were developed by DNR.
yes, they were.
But they do not adhere to them,
They do not.
but I know there's no law that says they have to.
Exactly. And in fact, 12 years ago, when all these changes were taking place, a law was passed exempting logging, actually lumping logging into agriculture, and agriculture is exempt from any environmental impact statement. We don't have to file any of this information. They don't have to justify, the consequences of anything that they do because it's agriculture, and that's how they're viewing our state forests. They're turning them into industrial tree farms with these gravel roads and.
Now, there was a big cut on Shuttle Creek,
Yes,
and that appears that was on the DNR land. Is that correct?
that's a good question. I don't know that.
I looked it up on the GIS thing, and it appeared to me that it was.
Right.
And that is awfully steep in there, and isn't there a slope restriction on the best management practices?
No. There are guidelines that dictate how close they can be to a moving body of water and a few other things, and those are routinely ignored. Yeah, it's not a rosy picture.
Well, to me, it's kind of hypocritical. You go on the DNR website and they go, here, these are best management practices. Because this is what you need to do, and then they don't do it.
Okay, and if a DNR person was here tonight, we would be having a pretty heated debate because they don't like criticism of their operations.
Of course.
Who does?
I understand. But one of the things is that they are required to do some of these things to get what is called a green certification. Now, in order to sell our logs to different entities out of state, we have to show that we are actually responsible in how we manage our forests. So they have these guidelines as a way to demonstrate that, yes, this is our intention, and then the green certification company they use, which is from the logging industry itself, verifies that, they have all the best intentions in the world, but that nobody is actually going out into the forest and inspecting these things. And they're using a rubber stamp year after year, using the same numbers over and over again, which indicates to us that they're not really doing the work.
In April of 2015, we were ranked 46th in the country in environment.
So
I read my case,
if we do write this letter, I think it's pretty significant that, there's 3 reservoirs in Monroe County. One of them's water supply, the other 2 are, in theory, backups. 2 of them have protection under county rules. We do not. And I think that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
And kind of
I do too,
glaring,
Les.
you know. And I get it for the residential, I know that, you know, if they had that, no one could build a house down there at the other end, because man, there's some steep places down there, but.
Well, if you build a house, you have to put, you know, I was in construction for a lot of years, there are remediations that you have to do to prevent erosion to take place.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether it's straw bales set out, or whether it's the plastic that they stake out and make sure that that soil is not going into a water source. I mean, these are, and Monroe County is pretty good about that part. Right.
Yes, they are. I went through that.
Yes, right. We all know they're sticklers, and they have actual inspectors who come out, and they actually want you to do what they tell you to do. Well, there's nothing like that happening with the DNR. And that's why I feel as an entity that there's a voice here that's more powerful than just individuals. And it's a very reasonable request. You know, we're going to spend all this money, and here's going to be all this public land that's not being managed to help us. And, you know, we're all citizens of Indiana. We own these forests. We should have a say in how they're managed. And the way the DNR feels about it is, no, we shouldn't have a say in it, because after all, they're the experts. Well, if they were really doing their job, I wouldn't be here tonight, because we wouldn't have this issue.
We appreciate your passion. I'm going to break from protocol just a little bit. Does anybody in our audience have a question or a thought for Mr. Seastrom before we?
Who's profiting from all of this?
That's a good question. There are a handful of entities that are in the logging business. The state marks the trees, they select the trees they want to cut, they conduct the sales, they pay for the roads to be built, they pay for all the gravel. And then these companies, and there's about 6 of them, and they kind of trade back and forth who wins the bids.
Governor owns one of them?
Huh?
Governor owns one of them?
I don't know about that.
I don't know, I'll start with the Dennis Daniels. That, he was the one that did it.
Yes, it was Governor Daniels that decided that the government should fund itself. And so that's the philosophy. You know, that's the philosophy behind these choices that we are now seeing this used in increased money. Like I say, historically, the way it was managed from the very first timber sales in the early 60s up until 12 years ago, I personally have no complaint with any of this. I mean, I'm a woodworker, right? I'm in favor of logging, but it should be done properly. And it shouldn't create erosion problems. You know, under the old management system, there was no erosion problems. And now we're seeing this massive erosion following every single logging event, and we have that on film. This isn't speculation. Yes, sir.
Do they have to replant any of this?
No. Their thought is they leave a certain number of oaks and hickories, because that's what they're trying to do, is create an oak hickory forest. And these mature trees drop seeds, and in theory, then reseed the forest. But you have deer predation, right? Now, oaks and hickories, they grow really slow. And the deer love them. They're like sushi to that. So, you know, the other issue is the stilt grass, which is so invasive that it immediately covers the forest floor. And it grows faster and higher than the young seedling. So they get choked out. So what you do get, though, is poplar, because they grow really fast. So you can go hiking in any of the logged areas, and what you're going to see is lots and lots of poplars and stilt grass. And what you're not going to see is oaks and hickories. Okay. Now they can, and they do argue this all the time, but the proof's in the pudding. I mean, I can take any one of you for a hike. In fact, you're all welcome. If anybody wants to go on a hike, I am here for you. But the truth is there to see.
Anybody else?
I have just a quick
sure.
question. The logging that has been approved on 3 parcels,
Yes, you have our package.
is that in Maureen Monroe State Forest, and that's known as the low gap area?
Yes, it is.
And that, what I have here is 2017 logging plans. Is that just a plan that's marked on here, or has that been approved?
Those are plans.
Okay.
The 3 sales that they have announced haven't actually gone through yet.
Okay.
Yes, this is one group that's working with this. This is called Buying the Gap. There's another group that Yellowwood Forest to the Lake Lemon watershed and to the Tecumseh Trail, which is a lot of it is in the Lake Lemon watershed.
Okay.
I live 2 miles from the Low Gap backcountry. And my husband and I and our dogs have walked pretty much every path in Morgan Monroe. And
It is
that is
beautiful.
just the most unbelievably beautiful area. And we do need oak and hickory in the forest. My son is a botanist, and he took us through the forest, and we had an excruciating tour. But I know more about trees than I ever thought I did, as everyone knows. But you have to have those trees because we do have too many poplars, and there's too many sycamores, and But those are slow trees, and they have to be planted. They have to be protected while they're growing. So it's a
One of the things that's interesting, if you go to the backcountry, what you will see is lots of little oaks and hickories, right? Now, they get up about this big, and they don't look like they're doing much. And in fact, for years, they might sit at this height.
takes them that long to get started.
And then all of a sudden, a big wind event comes along, or a giant old tree dies from natural causes. And when it falls, it creates all this sunlight, and all these little trees have been waiting, boom, up into the air. When they create what they call even growth management with a bulldozer, you don't get that. These trees have to fight for their lives. They're not being protected by the understory during the development stage.
Laura, did you have a question? You okay? Okay.
So essentially, the DNR has their science and we have our science. And the fact that we don't agree is proof that science is not absolute. What they're doing now in our state forest is an experiment. If they don't set aside any of it, and they're wrong, we all suffer the consequence. And especially us in Lake Lemon and our watershed.
So what could be done to disprove their science and prove yours?
Well, we're working on that every day.
But I'm just saying that, again, we can ask for a moratorium.
Right.
But if there's nothing else that shifts it, I don't know that we could make that permanent.
Well,
something, there has to be proof somewhere.
We have a new governor that is culturally a much different human being than we've seen recently. I mean, for one thing, here's this young lady who's his chief of staff. I mean, our former governor won't even be alone in a room with a woman. So, this is a huge cultural change, and we have a lot of hope for this guy. And what we're asking is not that much. I mean, if all of these sections here, all of these green areas in our watershed were eliminated from the logging pool, this represents a few $100,000 to them.
So it's not
we're not, and again, we have definite hope for the rest of the state forest, but I think the focus of our watershed is a doable thing. And I would, we could possibly arrange another meeting with this gal, and some of you could come and talk and explain the situation that Lake Lemon is facing.
Who's that? What gal are you speaking of?
Rebecca, and I'm going to say her last name wrong.
The chief of staff?
Yeah, the chief of staff, Rebecca Hollander. Very reasonable person. She asked excellent questions. She took notes. We had an honest discussion back and forth. I had a whole group of these photos that I left with her. Hopefully the governor got a chance to see them. It's not just the logging, it's what's left after the logging. And especially for us. I mean, this is huge for us.
I think the engineer that's dealing with our strategic planning committee ought to have a say in this as well. I mean, why hire a guy and pay the money we're paying if that engineering company doesn't have a say in this as well?
I briefly exchanged with him at the meeting at the Showers Building in Bloomington a couple of months ago. His statement to me indicated that he doesn't know what he's talking, and I don't mean to, I'm sure he's an expert in this field. I'm just saying he's unaware of this issue. He said logging doesn't increase siltation, and I can prove otherwise.
That's not true.
So, what I believe is that he's not taking this dramatic increase in logging into consideration when he's doing his calculations.
How long ago was it that you met with the chief of staff?
2 weeks ago.
Okay, because I'm just thinking about the timing of, it's
Right.
kind of fresh.
That's
You might
what-
want to do
yeah, that's what I'm
something
saying.
pretty quick.
Well, and again, she's such a reasonable person. I believe that if you sent a letter, it would actually get into the hands of the governor. I mean,
You know, there's
Can't hurt.
hundreds of ways to fight a fire. I mean, you can go to the chief of staff, you could write a letter to the DNR, the head of the DNR, and let them know that really, if what you say and what you can prove is true, that the siltation is coming into the lake, that could ruin their green certification. And I'm not saying to threaten the DNR, but I think if we just let them know, give them information based on what you have, the knowledge that you have, get a response from them. You know, we always do things by the chain of command, and I'm looking at, well, should we start with the DNR, who is the head of the Indiana Forestry, and let them know that what you're doing could impact your green certification. We would like to offer you alternatives. Would you come and speak with us, or something like that?
well, John Davis, in fact, the very week that we met with Rebecca, we also met with John Davis, who was number 2 in the Department of Natural Resources. He's a long-term bureaucrat. He's held that position since the 90s. He is, in fact, in charge of the Department of Forestry. And he let us know in uncertain terms that even though it's in their best management practices and in their guidelines, they're not going to set aside the 10%. That as far as he's concerned, logging does not increase siltation.
This is what I'm looking for. So do you have that in writing?
No, it was a closed door meeting.
Okay, see, this,
One of the things that we've talked about, because Dave's come to the Strategic Planning Committee, and that's how we invited him to come to this meeting. But one of the things that we did talk about previously was that as we do further study of sedimentation in the lake, we will be able to maybe factor in how much more is coming in as a result of logging that's going on.
That was my point about having
And
the engineer.
that's what we need.
And that's, see, it feels like we need some additional data
Absolutely.
so that
I'm
we.
sure there's all kinds of studies out there.
One of the things we're doing.
And it also sounds, from what you've described, Dave, like there are these different schools of thought, and we need more data. We need more information,
There's
so
gonna be all kinds
as a
of
board, we
data.
can make an informed
About what
decision.
happens.
Well, one of the things we're doing is there's a group of people who are measuring the quality of the water and the rate of siltation and the amount of sediment in the water following the logging event in tributaries leading to Lake Clement. And we will gladly share this information.
That would
with
be,
you as
that
we
kind
develop
of
it.
data would be
Because
helpful.
this is proof positive. This is, on the ground, basic science. Now, one of the issues we've had with the DNR, we've been conducting an inventory, which we call Eco Blitz, for the last 4 years.
Eco Blitz?
Eco Blitz. So we have done an extensive study of the backcountry area, and it's a complete inventory of every living thing that's out there. Now, the DNR's never done this. Now, they say they have their own studies, but what they do is they ask hunters to write down what animals they saw while they were in their tree stand. And that does have some value, but that's not the same thing as bringing in scientists from all over the Midwest. These are high-level professionals who are doing these studies, and the DNR says it's not science. So they're completely discrediting anything that's not being generated from their own sources. And that's one of the conflicts that we have.
So who are their sources? Do we know that? Do you know that?
Well, Purdue.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you said Dr. Grace Snap is from Purdue.
Yes, she is.
Okay.
Oh, she was from IU.
So
She's from Purdue.
Right, and Dr. Wesley Bishop, who lives right up the road here, who writes for the Brown County Democrat, and is a retired professor from Earl. She's a PhD in biology, and we have several PhDs on our board of directors.
Okay.
So, again, we are a science-based conservation group. We make our choices and decisions based on best science that's available to us.
Well, we sure appreciate your coming to see us, and.
And as you know, I can keep talking.
We,
but
well, we.
Thank you, thank you.
We will continue to do our research and.
Say hi to Claudia.
Yeah, I just think we need more information.
Absolutely.
And then we need to talk about it more.
Yep, and we will do so.
Yeah, I agree. I think letters to Rebecca, our representatives, and the governor are going to be a lot more effective. Having worked in IDEM and DNR, they manage for businesses, not manage
Okay.
for
All right.
environmental. If you go to DNR, they're going to have a whole different tone on the best practices that they're using.
Forewarned is forearmed.
You guys have a powerful
Well,
voice. Way more powerful than any single individual. So,
Well, we will take that all under advisement, do some more research, and keep in touch. I think if you have additional information that would be helpful to us on this side of things, you want to use Adam as a point of contact,
Sure.
or Mary Jane as the chair of
And if
this.
you would like Ray to address you guys,
Yeah,
She's-
I'm wondering.
her mother is sadly in her final days right now.
Oh.
She's
Is that the snaps?
Yeah, that
That's
snap.
Ray.
Ray Snack,
Okay,
SCHNAP.
okay, we'll use Adam as a point of contact
Yeah.
then for any further
And
helpful
again,
things.
if you'd like her to address you guys, let me know.
I think
And I
that'd
do
be
have this PowerPoint presentation, which again has a lot more photos to illustrate the topic that I was addressing tonight.
Okay, thanks. Sorry we couldn't do that tonight, but we might have you consider Bloomington at some point to do that for us if you would. Thank you.
All right, next on the mayor's report, I have our 2018 fees and discussion. The reason I brought this out now is next month we're going to have a ton of resolutions for 2018, including our fees. I kind of wanted to get a little bit of discussion on this. Last year we did it all in one very long meeting. Just that way I can kind of come in here and we don't necessarily have to have as long as discussion on this. A couple of things I would like to point out. As far as our boat fees go and our park fees, I think we're kind of at a point where there's not much room for an increase in price without seeing a decrease in users. We're kind of right at that tipping point. We do get complaints a lot, but we're still having the people. The biggest thing though, which I think affected us, is this year our watercraft permits are down by a little over 6%, just a little over $6,000. And doing all my research and going through everything, what I believe this is attributed to is last year we raised our fishing tournament fee from $50 to $100. And I've had 4 clubs this year that have completely just refused to do any work with us. And so our fishing tournaments, in our revenue for fishing tournament, we're down $700, which is, so that's 14 tournaments that we did not get this year. And mostly from, those three bass tournament or clubs, on average, there's about 20 boats per club, and they buy season passes because they come out and they pre-fish to go on ahead. Now, 20 boats per club, times 3 clubs, times over $100 in revenue, that's over $6,000 right there, just in boat passes. So I actually believe that hurt us very greatly, raising that up from the $50 to $100 because we just lost the tournament. They're just refusing to come here.
Well, what's your recommendation?
I think we got to go back to the $50.
The $1 per boat.
Yeah, $50 for the tournament. So they still have to buy their boat fees or pay a daily pass, but it just hurt us so much because people aren't coming down to register anymore.
Adam, do you think, though, maybe the drop might be that people recognize that there was no one patrolling and they just figure, well, I'm not going to worry about it because no one can catch me?
No, they show up early and we're on them. We've actually had people out that have tried to pull tournaments where they didn't register, and we're out there. We're catching them during weigh-ins. If all of a sudden we have 15 boats show up at once in the morning, we know it's very hard. Since
What
we don't
about the
have-
freeholders, though? People around the lake?
Well, the freeholders generally aren't. They're not in the clubs and in the tournaments.
Yeah, but I'm saying maybe they didn't buy the permit because they realized there was no patrol to enforce it.
We drive around, actually, we're out around a lot out there this year, and our resident permits are still selling about the same numbers that we did last
Yeah,
year.
it's just the fishing tournaments that
It's really, I think
down.
it's the fishing tournaments that really lost out on that. And we were out all year long, I was pulling over people left and right when I was out on the weekends for not having passes. So I don't think we've had a decrease in the passes from residents. I really think it accounts to our drastic reduction in that we have in fishing tournaments. No, we'll have a resolution next month, but if if we'll entertain that, I'd like to go ahead and, in our resolution, go ahead and change that back from the $100 to the $50. And it'll be approved next meeting, but I just kind of wanted to have that discussion we had.
Well,
Six
if you
resolutions.
take it back to 50 and then you find out that everybody comes back, then we're right.
And we know.
Yeah.
Then if they don't,
Yeah.
then we'll have to revisit it again.
Does
And
anybody?
we're still, we raised it to 50, I mean, it was real quick, I think
I
we'll really
would
send some of them
go
away.
with that
so it's from-
consensus.
Does anybody have a problem with that at this point? Okay. All right.
Yeah, and it was a quick, I mean, we went from 25 to 50 to 100, year to year to year, so they're just like,
Well, let's see what happens.
Other than that, really, that's kind of the biggest thing I would have. I think the park admission piece, $7, $60 for an annual, I think that's so good. We still get people that are, what did you raise this? Even though it's been that way for about 2 or 3 years now. But the rest of the fees, I think are really in line with what they should be. In order to bring any more additional revenue, I think we'll have to start looking at other sources, like we did get the agreement passed to have food vendors and stuff like that out here. So that's really the biggest thing on the fees discussion that I want to mention. I'm going to change that for our resolution potentially next year.
I do have one thing about fees,
Yes.
and maybe for the resolutions, we should consider imposing a fee for anybody doing guided fishing. Because, it's kind of pretty common practice anytime somebody's using public resources for profit. Like, I was just talking to Laura, I mean, it costs them to have the marina. And so I looked up this guy on the internet that advertises guided fishing. Yeah, so he charges anywhere from $225 just for 2 people for 4 hours, or you can do like 5 people in a pontoon boat for 6 hours, so that ramps up to $475. So, and then you see these pictures of people got bucketloads of fish in there and stuff,
And we have full authority in our
Get the
lease
money
to
back.
charge a commercial fee.
Pardon me?
We have full authority to charge a special commercial fee. And I agree with that. I mean, if we didn't have him doing tours out here, we'd lose a whopping $125. And that's increased our fishing pressure quite a bit, because it's been in the Bloomington paper multiple times and all over here. And we currently do not have that category, but I agree, I think it should absolutely happen for our annual permits. Now it would essentially give us a third category where we'd have our non-resident, resident, and commercial.
I
so
think
we can do that.
I agree.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
Okay, well, I would move that we add that to the resolution for next time.
Yeah, I mean, what price are you thinking? I mean, currently the non-resident passes are $95, it comes out to $128. I would almost suggest a flat $500 fee for commercial fishing.
If he's making $600,
A trip.
yeah, a trip,
Yeah.
but for 12 weeks during the month, he's making a ton of money.
Well, and that's consistent with what we're charging the borehole, correct? I mean,
We charge for a commercial dock $500. Roger Edwards paid it, Port Hole paid it. That's a fee.
A flat fee is easier to administer, although a lot of places, government entities will charge a percentage of net, but then you gotta chase the guy's paperwork.
Exactly, yeah.
And then they can cheat and all that stuff, so, maybe just a flat fee, and if they don't wanna come here, well then, don't.
Yeah, and I would suggest that we just do our commercial sublease fee, and just keep that
Yeah.
same fee to $500.
Yeah, so we'd have to contact them and tell
I
them.
think that's right.
Yeah, and when they come down, and we'll let them know next year, and if he's got a very distinctive truck, so I've seen the resident has.
Well, he's got a distinctive website too, so he's easy to
Yeah,
find.
all right, well, I'll add that in there too.
Where will you add that, Adam? Where?
It'd be under our annual voting permits. Essentially, we would just add, the income would come in under watercraft permits. So we already have a line item to take the money, but we would just add a different category. Whereas right now we have non-resident permits and resident permits.
All right.
We would add a commercial fishing permit. Commercial/guide.
Oh, yeah. I see
Makes
it
sense.
now. It's columned over. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, all right, I will put that in there, and I think that's a great idea. All right, barge operations update.
Point of order. Pam, would you entertain a comment at this point about this from freeholders so that it can be heard by the board before you go into a final decision? I
Certainly, if it's brief,
think It would be
Go ahead.
directly related as opposed to later in the meeting.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that confused me when I was, and I had not looked at it this way before, and this is just a structural thing. Why do we have two separate lines under entrance to the park, Monday through Friday and one Saturday, Sunday, and holidays, when it's the same amount and above it states 7 days a week? I'm just confused why there's two rows.
On
It seems
what?
very confusing
Riddle Point Park
on the
entrance.
Riddle Point fee.
So maybe we,
Is that a holdover from a day when the fees were different?
I would assume so, yes.
And that really makes
Yeah.
us look like we don't ever act together. I think that should be fixed.
Yeah, it really used to be different.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can change it just to have one.
And then when I was reading that and thinking and looking at long range with the strategic planning committee, some of the conversations and the increase of use, I'm wondering, this also does not create a commercial vehicle entrance fee. So like if a bus shows up with 20 people, they pay one $7 fee according to the schedule. So should the board entertain perhaps a new line that says a commercial vehicle fee, like what might include a daily person fee times the number on the fee,
we would have to
as
decide
opposed to private.
what would be the limit of that.
Yeah, you have to, I'm just asking you to
But
consider
yeah,
that.
and,
thank you.
And we're not gonna vote on this till next, so we can
Right.
still have comment again too, until next time. And yeah, it's not a bad idea. Most of the buses that we get are Boys and Girls Club, and they already have access through here.
15-person van size things usually, or something.
Not often, more than often, or more than not, it's schools, Monroe County schools, or Boys and Girls Club, and they are inside of our lease where they have permission to use it. So for those type of entities, we cannot charge that.
Yeah, but I don't think for school groups, no.
No, but we historically don't have, the only other times I can think of where we've actually had small passenger vans or when groups or organizations will rent out the shelter house and
Okay.
then brings it.
Thank you for that,
We
Sue.
can entertain that.
Okay. Barge operation?
Barge operations, we did have we pulled off on August 31st in order to get our equipment back in the coves before the drawdown happened. It's unfortunate we did lose a couple months of digging. We do have our push boat still in the water, so I'm hoping as soon as they're done, we get a good rain, we can get back in there and finish that channel. Because the way our winters have been, we could dig clear to December if we got the water done. So I was holding hope and hoping that's what we can do. As of now, we removed 5,800 yards. 400 yards of that is from zone 131, the west side of Point Idalong. 2,000 yards is from 304, which is the channel that goes around Little Africa and then starts going towards Chitwood. And then we removed 3,400 yards from zone 137, which are the actual internal channels on Chitwood. We're getting close. I mean, from where we're at to the end of the channel is maybe the length of this building, if that. So progress has been great. But the barge has been working really good in there. So we could not have fit a bigger barge in there. It is tight in those channels.
So it actually is working.
It's working. It is a little bit slower than if we were just using the big barge, but that's the name of the game, since we do want to load that. But the size is perfect, it's working, the excavator's good. All the entire Chitwood zone, the 3,400 yards, has all been with our new crew in July and August, and they've been tearing it up, and I've been very happy with them. So it's been going very good. It's going to be, all in all, probably a low yardage year, essentially due to stuff that's out of our control.
I heard cheeseburgers are being made for that crew up your way. Is that true? That's very nice.
That's where we're at in the barge. Currently, our equipment's in the respective coves. We've taken apart the small barge. I'm hoping we can get the big guy back out there. Now that we have a piece of equipment, it'll be easy to get the small one going again when we can. Next up, we have gatehouse renovation quotes. I started soliciting quotes for gatehouse renovation. The two quotes that came back were one was around $14,000, one was around $20,000. With the purchase of this, I don't think we should move forward with it this year. Why it's not in the best state of repair, I think it's going to fall down, and I'd like to keep us in the black instead of spending another $20,000. Plus, when we're reaching the $20,000 threshold, I feel like for another couple grand more, we can just rebuild that and have more space in there where we can sell ice, bait, actually increase our revenue. So I'd like to come back and we'll revisit that in the future because I think there's a lot more bang that we could get for our buck for not a whole lot more. So I'm really not even gonna go through and read those right now.
So you think we'll have money for it next year then?
I think maybe budget for it, and yeah, we'll have to see how we're going. We've been, I mean, last year we were over $50,000 in the black. This year I think we'll still be in the black with the purchase. So towards the end of the next year, we'll look back into it, and if we can do the purchase, we'll do it then. Or if not, we can always look for actually budgeting for it in 2019.
All right, thanks, Adam.
That's the report.
Mike, did you find your
I'm ready.
info so you can do your treasurer's
ma'am.
report now? Thank
Thank
you. Uh-huh.
For the month of August, we had $19,871 in income, and we had $45,846 in expenses. Out of the $45,000, $27,614 were written out of our checking account. I went over most of those checks with Adam just the other day and approved all those expenses. So I'll open it up for discussion, and if being none, I would ask for a motion for the approval of the vouchers.
I'll second.
Okay, so the approval of the vouchers has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
All right, can I get real quick, who was who motioned and seconded on that?
I motion.
Sue, and then
Pam
I
seconded.
Thanks, Adam. Do you want me to go into the budget now?
Absolutely.
This is the public hearing for the 2018 proposed budget. I did not make it at the July meeting. August meeting, thank you.
Oh, I thought it was a mosquito, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. The August meeting, and I apologize, but I did listen to the tape, and I thought Adam did a really good job going line by line on what the executive committee has come up with as a 2018 proposed budget. And listening to the tape, I didn't really hear a lot of discussion on where we're at with that. So I would just open it up to the board first to see if we have any discussion on our 2018 proposed budget as it is written. Next month is we will approve this. And I'll just tell you, Adam and I, we've been working on this quite a bit. We met with our field representative this summer and went over just about every line. The reason that we're meeting here was because of the gateway information that we entered into the system for the DLGF was incorrect. Adam and I sat there.
Screwed up.
Yeah, well, he asked Adam, he said, now where will you hold the meeting? He told him the City of Bloomington Utilities and gave him the address. And where will this be approved? City of Bloomington Utilities gave him the address. For whatever reason, Ryan Burke, a great guy, he put the wrong addresses in there, and I caught it. And I talked to Adam first, and Adam talked to Pam, and this is why
It was a little too late to get it.
Yes.
It wouldn't have been.
Yeah, we would have had to change the meeting date and everything
Notice.
else. So this is, I mean, we're being transparent. This is why we're meeting here tonight.
Yeah.
If it had been 95 degrees, we would have had to vote.
I would have not come. So,
No harm, no foul.
yeah, no harm, no foul, but that's exactly what happened. So,
Budget.
Some highlights real quick though are, our revenues are about $90,000 less, and that's because we budgeted $90,000 for the purchase of the excavator, which we did not end up needing to take that loan out to purchase the excavator. And we were able to get us down historically budget in the red. A lot of our stuff is really seasonally dependent, and it's hard to know exactly where you're going to fall. So we kind of budget for a highest expenditure case. That way we have a little bit of leeway room from this year. But we did manage to get it down last year. We budgeted at a little over $58,000 in the red. Still came out greatly in the black. We were able to get that down to $48,400 in the red this year. So we are slowly notching that out down to a more balanced budget initially.
that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Mary Jane
Is
has,
this a time for public input or
Oh,
on the
no,
budget?
pardon me?
On the
No
budget?
public input on the budget?
And during public comment, all the changes cannot be made any further. We had that opportunity in August, so if
She can-
you would, I think I would hold that till.
She can
public
ask a
comment.
question, but
Well, yeah, I have two questions. I wasn't able to make the August meeting, and I missed it until just now. I was just curious, there's a $3,000 amount under the line 6230, which is medical, and it wasn't there, nothing is zeroed out.
That's for an AED. We decided to apply to get an AED.
Automatic defibrillator.
Oh, okay.
That's a good question.
Explains
Yeah.
that.
Very good question.
It is a good question.
And then the other one is, and I understand the postage, I don't know how it's calculated, but my understanding of where we're going is we may be doing more mailing in various ways to various constituencies, and the postage seems to have gone down, and I'm just curious why we didn't go up a little, knowing that we're probably going to be doing more.
6180 postage stayed the same from 2017 to 2018, $750.
But we didn't add anything for the expected additional communications that might be going on.
I can tell you, we've had many discussions between the four of us, and when we got finished with our very first meeting, we were pretty much in the red. We had to go back and cut several line items, and office expense was one of them that we had to cut.
But we can go over if we need to, we can.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Money or
Yes.
not.
Yes.
Spend money,
We
can.
only have one fund, so the way that works in a lot of organizations is, well, they have funds for different categories and all their spending. We have one general fund. So underneath our general fund, we break this up into different line items to help for our budgeting purposes, tracking. However, since it's just the one fund, we can actually transfer funds from category line items still in that general fund. So we're just trying to find areas that.
So we're trying to balance the budget.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're chipping away at it.
Yep. Good questions.
We'll be coming to your house for stamps.
Yes.
And hopefully as we get in our database.
Oh, it was like $70, that's why I'm asking. I haven't bought one forever, it was $70.
You don't have a Pitney Bowes machine that we just run?
All right.
Hopefully as our database gets updated, we get more and more contacts, we'll be able to keep on the electronic side of things, get away from the hard mailings.
Theoretically.
Okay, Mary Jane's been very patient. She's gonna bite my right arm off and let her talk.
I'd be happy to sit here for a while. The Strategic Planning Committee meeting was on September 15th, and we discussed and began the draft of a media relations policy for the board, and that evolved into a discussion of what are the board operating procedures. And so what we determined we would do is write the media relations policy or procedure, which we are still reviewing, but then we're also going to recommend to the board operating procedures, and that's going to be a longer discussion, you know, because we don't know just what those need to be, so input is welcome along the way, but we'll be adding that to our task list going forward. On the subcommittee updates on Lake Health, Malcolm and Frank reviewed a list of engineering firms that they are exploring, and they'll be coming back to the committee with a recommendation for a subset of firms to provide bids to the district for the next phase of our work. Susan updated us on Friends of Lake Lemon and said that should be complete by October. And on Parks and Recreation, Adam is going to be following up with Michael Klitzing regarding next steps about doing an ADA study. We also had Dave Seastrom at our meeting, and you've heard most of what he said to us, and we invited him to come here. We are at a point where we feel like we have a number of things going on the committee right now, and we're working administratively to kind of corral some things to come back to the full board with recommendations, and we'll be doing that over the next few months. Our remaining committee meetings through the rest of the calendar year are going to continue to be on Fridays at 3:30, and they will be October 13th, November 10th, and December 1 at the office.
But I have just one update. I have yesterday, me and Malcolm and Frank all met for our subcommittee and started going over some of the engineering firms. I'm kind of weeding out some of the ones who we think will be more capable for the larger projects, looking at ones for some of the smaller parts. We actually have a draft letter that we're working on right now to get together, and that way we'll eventually present to the board to solicit bids. And so we can actually go to the companies, give them our letter, and be like, all right, here's our problems. What do you propose to do? What are the steps that you're going to do? And essentially, how much is it going to cost? So we're in the process of editing that right now and sending it back and forth. So we should have that done here in the next probably a couple of weeks and have a letter ready to send out to our major firms.
Right, and that Malcolm actually sent that letter out to the committee, so we should get our comments back as quickly as possible.
I just sent it to you.
Oh, you only sent it, oh,
Yeah,
do you want to send
We were
it?
talking internally, and then I thought I should copy you. So
Okay.
We're just
Should we-
some editing and some stuff already compiled.
Okay, before you send it out for any
We
further.
are making progress.
Okay,
Very good.
I'm sorry I didn't look at the distribution.
That,
I'm done.
I'd just like to thank you for all the work you've done, how organized you are, and how you're keeping us on track. This is becoming a really big deal, and it is moving us, I think, in a direction that we needed to go. And I
We've
appreciate
got a
you.
great team.
Well, thank you.
That's what I would say.
A wonderful chair. All right, public comment. I would entertain anyone who might have a thought. What's that?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any kind of an update on the progress of railroad? Are they working?
Yes, so we actually achieved our 2-foot drawdown. I shut the gates last Monday at 24. They began work on Tuesday the 19th. So a day early. They have been out there every single weekday. I make a daily trip. I do a little loop down Shoal Creek to make sure the work's going on. What I've noticed so far, it seems like they've started actually probably 3 out of the 5 truss cutters they've jackhammered and it's all crumbled and broken down. So I'm assuming what they're going to be doing is break down all the footers, and then once that's done, we'll actually come in and apply just a couple days and pour all the new footers while they have the equipment there. Trains are still going over it. There even was, today there's a truck, so they must be replacing ties on top. And I feel bad for that guy because the edges of that truck are over the track. I haven't been able to track down the foreman. I actually saw them a couple times. They're usually way out in the legs. I've been trying to get some updates on if they're going to be sticking to their 3-week timeline. I haven't been able to actually get a foreman yet to give me a confirmation on that. But they have been out there every day, and it seems like progress is being made. So with this weather and the water staying down, I'm hopeful. I did run into Vic Helson, the director of the CBU, out there one time, and he was under the impression that I said it was going to take maybe 2 weeks, if not much more. So hopefully between his knowledge, he has more than we do, and the good weather, it can be done within 3 weeks. But then hopefully we get a huge storm after.
It has been remarkable to me that it has not opened up and poured down rain since September 5th. It's a blessing, so thank goodness. Anybody else with a thought, a joke, a funny story, comments?
Wow, what's
All
wrong?
right. Wow, quiet bunch tonight. Everybody wants to get home before dark. I do need to make some notes for some future meeting changes. So October, our next meeting is actually October 26th. It's the fourth Thursday, and we're going to be back in Bloomington at 6 o'clock at the CBU building on Miller Avenue. Miller Drive, sorry. Thank you. So that's good. What happens is, because as we've changed our meeting night, the November meeting would be on Thanksgiving. So we decided in chatting about it that we would cancel that. The agenda is usually fairly light in November. The December board meeting would have been on December 28th. We had doubts that people would, people might be away. I'm having foot surgery that day, yada, yada. So we're going to go backward on December to the 14th. It's a Thursday, also at the CBU. So October 26th, good. November, no meeting. December is a change to December the 14th.
And we will need a motion.
And we will need a motion on that.
I will move that we accept the revised meeting dates for the remainder of 2017.
It has
Is that to be held at the CBU?
To be held at the CBU.
Yes. Thank
On
you.
Miller Drive.
Thank you.
It has been moved and seconded that we change as discussed. Is there any other comment on that? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll get that all on the website too, so that if you
Yeah,
don't have a pen. All right. Yeah, I worked on that. Yeah. Okay, so with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for coming. Be safe going home. Let's go. Okay, yeah, yeah.